When darkness meets the light, the dusty streets of Jerusalem were already alive when the sun began to rise. But for one man sitting near the marketplace, morning didn't make much of a difference. His world had never known colors, shapes, or the warmth of daylight. He only knew sounds, hurried footsteps, murmurs of traders, and the occasional voice of someone who tossed a coin into his bowl. His name was Eliab, a man who had learned to live in a world of permanent night. People passed him every day. Some ignored him. Some pitied him. Some believed his blindness was a curse, a punishment, or a sign that he was less than the rest. But Eliab had learned one thing. When people can't see your eyes, they rarely see your heart. On this particular morning, something felt different in the air, like hope moving quietly between the crowds. Eliab couldn't explain it. He just felt a presence, a calm one, a powerful one. Then he heard whispers. "He's here, Jesus of Nazareth." Eliab had heard the stories of a man who healed the sick, raised the broken, lifted the forgotten. Some said Jesus was a prophet. Others said he was the Messiah. Eliab didn't know who he really was, but he knew this. If anyone could touch the darkness inside him, it was this man. As the footsteps drew closer, the crowd thickened around Jesus. Eliab's heart pounded. He didn't know where Jesus was standing, so he did the only thing he could. He cried out, "Jesus, Son of David, have mercy on me." The crowd tried to silence him. "Be quiet, don't shout," they scolded. But Eliab refused to lose the one chance he might ever have. He shouted louder, stronger, "Jesus, have mercy on me." And then everything fell silent. Eliab could feel someone standing in front of him. Not the cold indifference of strangers, but warmth, authority, compassion. A gentle voice asked, "What do you want me to do for you?" Eliab swallowed. His hands trembled. No one had ever asked him that. No one had ever cared to. "Lord, I want to see." The street became still, as if the very wind was waiting. And then Jesus spoke words that carried power deeper than Eliab had ever felt. "Receive your sight. Your faith has made you well." Before the crowd could gasp, before Eliab could breathe, real light exploded into his world. For the first time in his life, he saw the first sunrise his eyes ever knew. Eliab didn't know how to describe what he was seeing. His mind struggled to understand colors he had never imagined. Colors he didn't even have words for. The world felt overwhelming, like someone had lifted a curtain he didn't know existed. The first thing he saw clearly was the face of Jesus. Not harsh, not distant, but peaceful, like sunlight resting on calm water. Compassion lived in his eyes, and yet there was a strength there that made Eliab feel safe, seen, and known. Eliab blinked repeatedly, trying to steady himself. People around him gasped, some stepping back, others stepping closer. Word spread fast. "The blind man can see. Jesus healed him. Is this really happening?" Eliab didn't care what they said. He was too busy rediscovering life. He saw dust floating in the air. He saw the curve of the stones beneath his feet. He saw the bright sky stretching endlessly above the city. Everything felt new, like a world reborn. But the miracle didn't just open his eyes. It opened something deeper. All his life, Eliab had sat in the shadows. listening while others walked forward. But now, for the first time, he moved toward something, toward purpose, toward the one who had changed everything. Jesus gently placed a hand on his shoulder. "Walk with me," he said. Eliab nodded instantly. How could he not? This wasn't just a healer, this was hope. Living, breathing hope. As he walked beside Jesus, he noticed people staring not at him, but at Jesus. Some stared in awe, some stared in confusion, some stared with suspicion. And Eliab realized something. Physical sight was different from spiritual sight. Many people around Jesus could see with their eyes, but their hearts were blind. They saw his miracles, they heard his teachings, but they still didn't understand who he truly was. Eliab whispered, almost to himself, "Why can they not see?" Jesus looked at him with a knowing smile. "Many have eyes but cannot see, and ears but cannot hear." Eliab felt a chill, not of fear, but of understanding. His blindness had been physical, but theirs was chosen. As Jesus walked further into the busy streets, crowds followed. Some came out of faith, some out of curiosity, some out of doubt. But Eliab stayed right beside him, knowing one thing with absolute certainty. He may have just received his sight, but he was only beginning to learn what true vision meant. When the healed man saw what others missed, Eliab walked beside Jesus, but every step felt like a lesson. His eyes knew, curious, almost childlike, absorbed everything. But the more he observed, the more he noticed something strange. The people who had always been able to see were the ones struggling the most to understand. Jesus, crowds surrounded him, some reaching out in desperation, some whispering in confusion, others folding their arms in silent judgment. Eliab watched all of it with a fresh perspective. To him, everything about Jesus felt clear, certain, unmistakably divine. But to those who had seen the world their whole lives, the truth seemed blurry. He saw a Pharisee watching Jesus carefully, like a man waiting for a reason to accuse. His chin was raised, his expression sharp, but his eyes held something Eliab recognized instantly. Fear. The fear of losing control. The fear of truth. Jesus continued teaching, speaking softly to a group of children gathered near the well. His voice carried a gentleness Eliab had never heard in anyone else. The children listened with wide eyes, drawn to him like flowers turning toward the sun. But the Pharisee didn't soften. He stepped forward with a cold, practiced smile. "Teacher," he said loudly, "you perform miracles on the weak. But by what authority do you do these things?" Eliab felt a tightening in his chest. He had heard voices like that before, voices that judged him, dismissed him, labeled him. They were the voices that kept him in the dark long before his blindness ended. Jesus met the Pharisee's gaze, unshaken. "If you cannot see the works of God," he said calmly, "then no answer I give will open your eyes." The crowd murmured. The Pharisee's expression stiffened. But Jesus simply turned back to the children, as if the challenge didn't matter at all. Eliab felt something break open inside him. For years, he had prayed for physical sight, but now he realized there were other kinds of blindness caused by pride, ego, and hardened hearts. Blindness that no miracle could fix unless a person wanted to see. A woman nearby leaned toward Eliab, whispering, "Why does he speak like that?" Isn't he afraid of them? Eliab shook his head slowly. No, he said, his voice steady. He's not afraid. He sees deeper than we do. He looked at Jesus, really looked, and he understood. Eliab had gained more than vision. He had gained clarity. For the first time, he wasn't just seeing the world. He was seeing the truth behind it. Eyes that learned to recognize the heart. As the day moved on, Eliab continued walking with Jesus through the winding streets. Every corner revealed something new, yet something familiar. People searching for hope, people hiding their fears, people pretending to be strong. Eliab could read their faces easily now. But what surprised him more was how Jesus read their hearts. A young man rushed toward Jesus, breathless, his clothes dusty from running. Master, my sister is sick. She hasn't opened her eyes in days. Please come. Eliab watched Jesus place a comforting hand on the man's shoulder. Lead the way, he said. They followed him to a small home on the hillside. Inside, a girl lay on a rough mat, her skin pale, her breathing shallow. The family stood around her, helpless. Their eyes were filled with fear, the same fear Eliab had lived with his entire life. Jesus knelt beside the girl. He didn't rush. He didn't speak loudly. He simply looked at her as if he saw not her sickness, but her soul. Do you believe she can be healed? Jesus asked the family. The room fell silent. The girl's mother trembled. Lord, we want to believe. Eliab stepped closer, his voice soft but certain. Then hold on to that. Even a small spark of belief can light a dark room. The mother looked at him, surprised, a stranger speaking with the calmness of someone who had seen miracles. And he had. Jesus gently touched the girl's wrist. Little one, rise. Her chest rose sharply. Her eyes fluttered slowly, then fully. Color returned to her face like dawn breaking overnight. She sat up weakly, confused but breathing, alive. Gasps filled the room. Tears flowed freely. The mother clung to her daughter as if afraid she might disappear again. Eliab felt warmth fill his chest. Not just joy, understanding. The same power that restored sight to his eyes was restoring hope to this family. This wasn't just healing. It was love made visible. Outside, as they left the house, Eliab asked Jesus quietly, "How do you do it? How do you see what people are truly carrying inside?" Jesus smiled. When you look with compassion, you see deeper than the eyes ever can. Eliab felt those words settle inside him, like a seed planted in fresh soil. He realized he had been healed not only to see the world, but to see people really see them just as Jesus did. The day he learned vision comes with a calling. Eliab woke the next morning with a strange feeling, a mixture of joy, gratitude, and something new. Responsibility. Sight was a gift, but walking with Jesus was reshaping him from the inside. He no longer felt like the man who once sat in darkness. He felt called, though he didn't yet understand to what. As they traveled toward the outskirts of the city, Eliab noticed a group gathered near the well, arguing, loud, frustrated. Jesus slowed his steps, observing quietly. A man in the group shouted, "She stole from me. I saw her take the coins." A woman stood trembling, clutching her scarf tightly. "I didn't take anything," she whispered, tears forming. Eliab looked at the crowd. Some sided with the man, Others stared coldly at the woman. No one was interested in truth-only judgment. Jesus stepped forward. "Why do you accuse her?" The man pointed angrily. "Because I saw her near my store. Who else would do it?" Eliab watched the woman, the fear in her posture, the desperation in her eyes. He recognized that look. It was the same look he had worn for years as a blind beggar, when people assumed the worst simply because it was easy. Jesus knelt slightly so he could meet the woman's gaze. "Tell me," he said gently, "what burdens your heart?" The woman's voice cracked. "My child is hungry. I haven't earned anything in days. But I swear, Lord, I didn't steal." The crowd murmured in disbelief. But Eliab felt something inside him stir. He suddenly understood why Jesus brought him here. Eliab stepped toward the angry merchant. "You said she stole because you saw her, but seeing with eyes is not the same as knowing the truth." The man scoffed. "And who are you to tell me that?" Eliab lifted his chin. "A man who once had eyes that were useless. A man who judged wrongly many times. A man who learned yesterday that sight is dangerous if the heart remains blind." The crowd fell silent. Jesus placed a hand on Eliab's shoulder, affirming him. Then he turned to the merchant. "Do you have proof?" The man hesitated. His anger shrank into uncertainty. Jesus spoke softly but firmly, "Then show mercy." Mercy reveals the heart far more than accusation. Slowly, unwillingly, the merchant lowered his head. The woman fell to her knees in relief. Eliab exhaled. For the first time, he felt the weight of the truth. His healing wasn't just for him. It was for others so he could help them see what he once couldn't. When the crowd saw a miracle but missed the message, by afternoon, word of Jesus' miracles had spread even farther. Everywhere he went, crowds gathered, some out of faith, some out of curiosity, and some simply for spectacle. Eliab stayed close, watching not just what Jesus did, but how people reacted. His new eyes were teaching him things his old world of darkness never could. As they reached the town square, a large crowd pushed in from every direction. In the center lay an old man, his legs twisted and weak. His family knelt beside him, pleading, "Rabbi, he hasn't walked in years." One of them cried, "Please, we've tried everything." Jesus approached quietly. The noise of the square seemed to shrink around him. Eliab could see hope flicker in the old man's weary eyes, hope fighting against decades of disappointment. "Do you believe that I can heal you?" Jesus asked gently. The man nodded slowly. "Lord, I believe. Help me in my unbelief." Jesus smiled soft, reassuring, full of understanding. He reached down and touched the man's hand. "Rise, walk." The crowd leaned forward. A breath, a tremor, a gasp. The old man pushed his palms against the ground. His legs frail, forgotten by time, strengthened beneath him. He stood, then took a step, then another. His family burst into tears, clinging to him as he laughed and cried at the same time. The square erupted in shouts of praise and disbelief. But Eliab noticed something that the crowd didn't. Some people cheered, others stared, and still others whispered among themselves, "It's a trick. He's doing this to gain followers. This is dangerous. This cannot be from God." Eliab looked at their faces, and felt disappointment settle like dust in his chest. How could people watch a man walk after years of suffering and still refuse to believe? Jesus looked at Eliab knowingly, as if reading his thoughts. "Do not be discouraged," Jesus said quietly. "Many see miracles but miss the message." Eliab lowered his eyes. How can they be blind when the truth is right in front of them? Jesus replied, "Because seeing requires willingness. Some guard their hearts more tightly than their eyes." A cold breeze drifted through the square. Eliab realized something painful but true. Miracles could open eyes, but only faith could open hearts. As they walked away, the healed man followed them, shouting in joy, the kind of joy that can't be contained. But behind them, Eliab heard the murmurs of doubt growing louder, and he understood. His journey with Jesus wasn't just about celebrating light. It was about confronting the shadows that people chose to keep. The moment Eliab saw the weight Jesus carried, as evening approached, the streets softened under the fading gold of sunset. Jesus and his followers stopped near a quiet hillside overlooking the city. The crowds were behind them, now only the whisper of wind remained. Eliab stood beside Jesus, feeling the calm, but also something else. A heaviness in the air. Jesus sat on a smooth rock, looking out over Jerusalem, not with resentment, not with fear, but with a deep, aching love that Eliab could almost feel pressing against his chest. "Lord," Eliab said softly, "is something troubling you?" Jesus didn't answer immediately. He watched the city, the rooftops glowing under the last light of day, the temple standing tall, the narrow streets filled with people he longed to reach. "Eliab," he said finally, "many rejoice when they see miracles, but miracles are not why I came." Eliab listened closely, his heart tightening. Jesus continued, "I came because they are lost, not blind in the eyes, blind in spirit. And that blindness causes suffering far deeper than anything you once carried." Eliab swallowed hard. He remembered the Pharisees' cold stare, the merchants' accusations, the whispers of doubt after the lame man walked. Yes, spiritual blindness was everywhere. Jesus turned to him. "Do you know why I healed you?" Eliab hesitated. "Because you are merciful, and because you saw my faith." Jesus smiled gently. "Yes, but there is more." A silence fell between them, heavy, expectant. "You were healed," Jesus said, "to see the burden I carry and to share it." Eliab's breath caught. "Share it? But I'm just learning to live with sight. What could I possibly do?" "You can see without fear," Jesus said. "You can recognize pain in others. You can show compassion where others show judgment. That is vision the world desperately needs." Eliab felt a shiver move through him. It wasn't fear, it was purpose awakening. Below them, torchlights began to flicker in the city, small flames glowing in the deepening dusk. Jesus watched them with a soft sadness. "They think they know me," he said quietly, "but many will turn away when my path becomes difficult." Eliab felt his voice tremble. "I won't." Jesus looked at him deeply, knowingly. "Then walk with me, even when the world closes its eyes." In that moment, Eliab understood something profound. Being healed wasn't the end of his story. It was the beginning of a mission, to carry light into places where people refused to see it. The night truth shone brighter than torches. Night settled over the city like a quiet cloak. Small torches lit the pathways, but Eliab noticed something unusual: people gathering in clusters, whispering anxiously as Jesus walked by. Some stepped back in awe, others leaned in with suspicion. The air felt thick, charged with something he couldn't quite name. As Jesus walked through the narrow street, a man approached him fast, desperate, eyes wide with fear. "Rabbi, please, my father is losing his mind," he pleaded. "He speaks to shadows that aren't there. He cries out in terror at night. No healer will come near him." The man's voice cracked. "They say he's cursed." Eliab felt a familiar sting. He had once been labeled the same. Jesus nodded gently. "Take me to him." They entered a dimly lit home. In the corner, an older man trembled violently, whispering things no one else could hear. His son knelt beside him, holding his shaking hands. Eliab watched Jesus step close, not with hesitation, but with authority wrapped in compassion. The man's eyes snapped open wide, terrified. "Stay back," he cried. "The darkness follows me." Jesus knelt in front of him. "The darkness has no power where the truth stands," he said softly. The man's breathing slowed, just slightly, but enough to notice. Jesus laid his hand on the man's head. A stillness swept through the room, like the air itself was listening. "Be free," Jesus said. A long, trembling exhale left the old man's chest. His body relaxed. His eyes really cleared for the first time in years. The sun burst into tears. "Father," the man blinked, confusion melting into relief. I can think again," he whispered, as if afraid it might vanish. The entire room filled with gratitude, disbelief, and overwhelming joy. But outside, Eliab noticed shadows gathering again. Not demons, not darkness. People watching, people murmuring. It's sorcery. He shouldn't meddle in such things. He challenges the order. Eliab's heart clenched. The man inside had just been freed from torment. Yet the world outside was already twisting the miracle into something dangerous. When Jesus stepped out into the street, torches flickered, casting long shadows across the walls. Eliab realized that light always reveals what darkness hides, and not everyone welcomes that. Eliab whispered, "Lord, why do they fear what you do?" Jesus answered without hesitation, "Because truth exposes what they try to protect." Eliab felt the weight of those words settle deep inside him. Tonight, he understood a new truth. Miracles don't just reveal God's power. They reveal the world's fears. When the light forced every hidden shadow to move, the next morning brought a rare, uneasy silence. Birds still sang, the streets still stirred, but something in the atmosphere felt tense. Eliab sensed it the moment he opened his eyes. The people were watching Jesus more intensely than ever, not with wonder, but with growing suspicion. As they walked toward the marketplace, Eliab noticed two Pharisees whispering at the corner. Their eyes followed Jesus like hunters tracking their prey. Eliab felt a chill crawl across his spine. But Jesus walked calmly, his steps steady, his gaze filled with purpose. Suddenly, a woman stumbled toward him, disheveled, terrified, pulled forward by a group of angry men. They shoved her into the dirt at Jesus' feet. "Teacher," one of them shouted, "this woman was caught in sin. Moses commands us to stone such a woman. What do you say?" Eliab's heart dropped. He saw the fear in her eyes, the same fear he once carried when people judged him without mercy. The crowd grew around them quickly, hungry for drama. Some yelled for punishment. Others waited silently, eager to trap Jesus with his own words. Jesus knelt beside the woman without speaking. He drew something in the dust. The men grew impatient. "Well, what do you say, Jesus?" Eliab clenched his fists. He knew this wasn't about justice. This was a trap, a way to twist Jesus's compassion into weakness. Jesus finally stood. His voice was calm, steady, almost gentle. Yet it cut through the chaos like lightning. "Let the one among you who has no sin cast the first stone." A hush fell so thick that even the wind seemed to pause. The accusers froze. Their anger cracked. Their eyes shifted away. One by one, stones slipped from their hands and hit the ground with soft thuds. First the older men left, then the younger ones. Soon the crowd thinned until only Jesus, Eliab, and the trembling woman remained. Jesus turned to her, his expression soft and full of compassion. "Woman, where are your accusers?" She looked around, stunned. They're gone." Jesus nodded. "Neither do I condemn you. Go and sin no more." Eliab watched her leave with tears in her eyes, free, forgiven, restored. But when he looked up, he saw the Pharisees standing in the distance, their faces hardened with rage. They weren't moved by compassion. They were threatened by it. Eliab whispered, "Lord, the more you shine, the more they hate you." Jesus placed a hand on his shoulder. "Light does not create shadows, Eliab. It only reveals them." And Eliab understood. Truth had drawn a line in the sand, and not everyone wanted to step into the light. The day the blind man truly understood the light. The final morning of Eliab's journey with Jesus dawned quietly, but the stillness felt heavy, like the world was holding its breath. Rumors had spread through every street. Some said Jesus was a prophet. Others said he was a threat. And some, whispering in fear, insisted he must be stopped. Eliab walked beside Jesus, but his heart felt uneasy. He could sense something coming, something dark, something painful. Yet Jesus walked calmly, as if every step was planned long before he took it. They paused on a hill overlooking the city once more. Jesus watched the crowds below, merchants shouting prices, children laughing, Roman soldiers marching, Pharisees watching with cold eyes. "Lord," Eliab whispered, "why do they reject you even after everything they've seen?" Jesus looked at him, eyes full of both sadness and strength. "Because truth demands change, and many fear the cost of transformation." Eliab swallowed hard. "Will they try to harm you?" Jesus didn't answer directly. Instead, he placed a hand on Eliab's shoulder, firm, steady, full of meaning. "Eliab," he said softly, "you once lived in darkness. Now you walk in light. But remember, light cannot stay hidden. It must shine, even when it invites danger." Eliab felt those words like a weight and a gift at the same time. As they went down the hill, a group of children ran toward Jesus, laughing, pulling at his robe, begging him to teach them. Jesus knelt, smiled, and spoke to them gently as the parents watched with gratitude. Eliab realized something painful but beautiful. No matter how much the world plotted against him, Jesus never stopped loving, never stopped healing, never stopped seeing people with compassion. But soon after, a small group approached Jesus quietly. Men with controlled voices. Men who looked around the way cowards do when shame hides behind authority. "Teacher," one said stiffly, "we need to speak with you." Eliab felt his breath catch. He knew what this was. Jesus turned to him and said, "Do not fear. What must happen will happen in the time appointed." Eliab wanted to speak, wanted to beg him not to go, but Jesus' calmness silenced him. He could only watch as the men led him away. The world around Eliab dimmed. For a moment, it felt like the darkness of his old life was returning. But then he remembered something. Jesus had healed his eyes, but he had also healed his heart. And hearts that have seen truth can never go blind again. Eliab lifted his head, tears forming, but hope rising. He whispered, "I will walk in the light, just as you taught me." And with that, the man who once lived in total darkness stepped forward, not just with sight, but with purpose, carrying the light Jesus placed in him into a world desperately needing it.